Have you ever felt completely trapped? Like you're living in a tiny kingdom where one person holds all the power, making arbitrary decisions that cost you money, ruin your property values, and generally make your life miserable? If you live in a community governed by a homeowners association, or HOA, chances are you've encountered the rogue board member, the person who acts less like a volunteer fiduciary and more like a mini-dictator, convinced they are above the rules they enforce. They misuse funds, ignore the governing documents, play favorites, or simply refuse to step down when their time is done. It's infuriating. It feels helpless. And for many homeowners, the idea of actually removing this person seems impossible, a procedural maze designed to protect the powerful. But I promise you, it is not impossible. It is a process, a detailed, often grueling process, but one that is absolutely winnable if you follow the steps. We are not talking about griping on the community Facebook page. We are talking about a surgical, legal, step-by-step operation to restore sanity to your community. This is your comprehensive guide, the definitive playbook for removing a rogue HOA board member and ensuring they never get that power back. The first, most critical step in this entire endeavor, the absolute foundation upon which your entire removal effort will stand or fall, is mastering the governing documents, the bylaws and CC&Rs. You cannot fight a legal battle using emotions. You must use their own rulebook against them. Think of your HOA's governing documents, the Declaration of Covenants, Conditions and Restrictions, CC&Rs, and the bylaws, as the constitution of your community. The rogue board member likely relies on the fact that 99% of homeowners have never actually read these documents, let alone understood the specific clauses related to board governance and removal. Your first mission is to become the community expert. You need to locate the most recent legally filed versions of the bylaws and the CC&Rs. If your HOA is large, you might also need the Articles of Incorporation. Do not rely on a dusty copy you found in a drawer. Demand the official, recorded copies from the management company or the secretary. If they refuse, that refusal is, in itself, documentation of obstruction, which you will use later. Once you have these documents in hand, you are not just skimming them. You are hunting for specific, critical clauses. The first clause you must find is the removal provision. Every set of bylaws, by law, must contain a procedure for removing a director or officer. This clause will specify exactly who can initiate the removal. Is it the remaining board members, or is it the homeowners? It will detail the necessary threshold. Do you need a simple majority of all eligible voters, a majority of those attending a meeting, or perhaps a supermajority, 2/3 or 3/4, of the entire membership? This percentage is the most important number in your entire fight. Knowing you need 51% versus 67% dictates your entire mobilization strategy. The removal provision will also specify the grounds for removal. While many states allow removal without cause, meaning homeowners don't need a specific reason other than a loss of confidence, some bylaws require removal to be based on specific criteria, such as malfeasance, nonfeasance, or gross negligence. If your bylaws require cause, your documentation phase, which we'll cover next, becomes even more critical, requiring ironclad proof of specific wrongdoing. Next, you need to find the quorum requirements for membership meetings. Removing a board member almost always requires a special meeting of the membership. If your bylaws state that a quorum requires 25% of all 500 homes, that means you need 125 units physically or via proxy present or represented to even hold a valid meeting. If you fail to meet the quorum, even if every person present votes for removal, the action is void. This is where many removal efforts fail, not on the vote, but on the procedural hurdle of the quorum. You must know this number cold. Furthermore, investigate the notice requirements. How far in advance must the membership be notified of a special meeting? Is it 10 days, 15 days, 30 days? Does the notice have to be mailed, emailed, or both? Any procedural error in the notice can be grounds for the rogue member to legally challenge and overturn the removal vote later. The rogue member and their allies will be meticulously searching for any procedural flaw, and you must be perfect. You must highlight these 3 sections: removal threshold, quorum, and notice, and treat them as your holy grail. Understand that the rogue member will use the bylaws as a shield. You must turn them into a sword. Once you have mastered the rulebook, you transition immediately into the second, grueling, but indispensable phase: building the ironclad case, documentation, and evidence gathering. Emotions are irrelevant in a legal challenge. Only verifiable. Facts matter. The rogue member may be arrogant, rude, and universally disliked, but being a jerk is not typically grounds for removal. You need proof of actionable wrongdoing, financial mismanagement, procedural violations, breach of fiduciary duty, or discriminatory enforcement of rules. This phase requires meticulous, almost obsessive attention to detail, transforming vague complaints into concrete exhibits. Start by creating a centralized, secure system for your evidence, preferably a digital folder structure backed up in the cloud, and a physical binder of doom. This binder must be organized chronologically and by category of offense. The categories of evidence you are hunting for include, but are not limited to: financial misconduct, procedural violations, selective enforcement, and breach of fiduciary duty. Let's dive deep into financial misconduct. This is often the quickest path to removal because numbers don't lie. Look for unauthorized spending, lack of competitive bidding for large contracts, or commingling of personal and HOA funds. Demand copies of the bank statements and invoices. If the rogue member signed a contract with a company owned by their cousin without disclosing the relationship, that is a clear breach of duty. If they authorized a $10,000 expenditure without proper board approval as required by the bylaws, that is a procedural and financial violation. You must obtain copies of the meeting minutes where these expenditures were, or were not, approved, the canceled checks, and the corresponding invoices. If the board or management company refuses to provide these documents, that refusal itself is evidence of attempted cover-up and grounds for a legal petition to compel disclosure. Document every instance of refusal, noting the date, the person you asked, and the specific document requested. Next, focus on procedural violations. The rogue member often believes they can bypass the rules. Did they hold an executive session without proper notice to the other directors? Did they make decisions outside of a properly called meeting? Did they fail to provide required financial reports to the membership? Did they manipulate meeting minutes after the fact? Compare the draft minutes to the approved minutes. Look for instances where they ignored the input of the community or failed to follow the voting procedures outlined in your bylaws or state law. Every single time they violated the bylaws or state statute, that is a bullet point in your indictment. Selective enforcement is a powerful motivator for the community. If the rogue member strictly enforces a rule against one homeowner, e.g. fining them for a minor fence issue, while completely ignoring a similar, or worse, violation by their friend or their own property, this demonstrates bias and a failure to act in the best interest of the community as a whole. Take dated photographs of both the penalized violation and the ignored violation. Gather witness statements from the homeowner who was selectively targeted. This shows malice and arbitrary use of power. Finally, gather evidence of breach of fiduciary duty. This is the broadest category. A board member has a legal duty to act in the best financial and legal interest of the association. If the rogue member repeatedly votes against necessary repairs, ignores legal advice, or actively harms the community's reputation or finances, that is a breach. Did they ignore a critical maintenance issue that later resulted in a massive insurance claim? Did they intentionally mislead the membership during an annual meeting? Collect emails, letters, and recorded statements. Every piece of evidence must be verifiable, dated, and linked back to a specific violation of the governing documents or state law. Organize your binder of doom into tabs labeled clearly: financial reports, meeting minutes, violations highlighted, correspondence, and photographic evidence. This level of meticulous organization will intimidate the board and show any potential legal counsel that you are serious and prepared. With your evidence compiled and your bylaws mastered, you move into the third, highly sensitive phase: mobilizing the membership, the petition and coalition building. Removing a board member is not a solo endeavor. It is a political campaign, requiring numbers and unity. The petition is your formal declaration of war, the document that triggers the procedural clock. But the real work is convincing your neighbors to sign it. The first step in mobilization is designing the perfect petition. It must be legally sound, unambiguous, and intimidatingly professional. The petition must clearly state its purpose. We, the undersigned members of HOA name, hereby call for a special meeting of the membership for the sole purpose of considering and voting upon the removal of Board Director Rogue member's name from the Board of Directors. Do not include inflammatory language or accusations on the petition itself. Keep it procedural and clean. Crucially, the petition must include spaces for the member's printed name, signature, address, and the date signed. In many communities, only the primary owner of record can sign, so confirm this detail in your bylaws. If a signature is illegible or the address is missing, the board will disqualify it, lowering your count. You must aim for significantly more signatures than the required quorum and removal threshold. Always overshoot the target by at least 20% to account for disqualifications, people moving, or last-minute signers retracting their names under pressure. Now comes the hard part: the door-to-door campaign. You must approach your neighbors, and you must be prepared for resistance, apathy, and fear. Many homeowners are afraid of retaliation, increased scrutiny of their property, fines, or general harassment from the rogue member. Your approach must be empathetic and factual. Do not lead with emotion. Lead with the evidence you painstakingly gathered. Bring your binder, or at least a professionally printed summary of the most egregious offenses: the financial misuse, the selective enforcement, the procedural violations. Show them the numbers. Explain clearly that their signature is confidential as much as possible, and that this is the only legal mechanism to protect their property values and stop the abuse. Identify your allies early. Create a core working group, a coalition of 5 to 10 highly motivated, articulate homeowners who are willing to take different sections of the community. This decentralizes the effort and makes it less likely that the rogue member can target one central leader. Train your team on the talking points. They must be prepared to answer the tough questions. What happens if they sue us? The HOA indemnifies the members acting in good faith. Why are they so bad? Present the facts, not just feelings. What if we fail? We try again, but we must try now before more damage is done. You must also anticipate and neutralize the rogue members' counter-campaign. They will spread rumors, send misleading emails, and potentially misuse HOA funds to hire a lawyer to write threatening letters to homeowners who sign the petition. Your counter-strategy must be swift and based on truth. Distribute factual flyers summarizing the violations. If they send a threatening letter, consult your own legal counsel, if necessary, and assure homeowners that they are acting within their rights under the bylaws and state law. The key to this phase is persistence, professionalism, and maintaining absolute control over the narrative. Once you reach the required number of verified signatures, you are ready for the next, highly procedural step. The fourth crucial maneuver is the formal demand, calling the special meeting. Once the petition is complete, verified, and ready, the coalition leader must formally submit it to the HOA board, usually via certified mail to the board president and the management company, if applicable. This submission triggers a legally mandated clock, and the board must act within a specific time frame dictated by your state law or bylaws, usually 10 to 30 days, to schedule the special meeting. The demand letter accompanying the petition must be precise and formal. It must reference the specific bylaw section that allows members to call a special meeting and the specific section that dictates the removal procedure. It must demand that the board schedule the meeting, provide proper notice, and include the removal of the specific director as the only item on the agenda. Do not allow them to muddy the waters with other topics. The rogue board member and their allies will attempt to delay, obstruct, or derail this process immediately. You must be prepared for their tactics. Tactic 1. Questioning the validity. They will attempt to disqualify signatures based on minor technicalities, e.g., the ink color, the address format, whether the signing member is current on dues. You must preemptively address this by ensuring your initial signature verification was rigorous. If they disqualify signatures unfairly, you must immediately challenge their decision in writing, citing the specific bylaw that dictates valid membership. Tactic 2. Delay and procrastination. They might claim they are too busy, or that the management company needs more time. This is why you sent the demand via certified mail. The clock is ticking, and their failure to schedule the meeting within the required period is, yet again, another procedural violation that can be used against them in court. If they fail to schedule the meeting, you have the right, under most state laws, to schedule the meeting yourself, provided you follow the notice requirements exactly. This is a powerful escalation. When the meeting is finally scheduled, the notice of meeting itself becomes a point of contention. The notice must explicitly state the purpose. Special meeting of the membership for the removal of director name. If the notice is vague, misleading, or fails to include all required information, date, time, location, quorum requirements, the rogue member can later claim the resulting vote is invalid. You and your coalition must review the notice immediately upon receipt. If it is flawed, demand a corrected notice be sent out immediately, again, via certified mail. The location and timing of the meeting are also critical. The rogue board member might try to schedule the meeting at an inconvenient time, midday Tuesday, or an inaccessible location to suppress turnout. While they have some discretion, the location must be reasonable. If the location is intentionally obstructive, challenge it. Your goal in this phase is to ensure the meeting is scheduled properly, noticed flawlessly, and that the rogue member's attempts to sabotage the procedure are documented and countered immediately. The fifth stage is the moment of truth. Executing the removal vote, strategy and procedure on meeting day. This is where preparation meets execution. The meeting day is highly procedural, often tense, and requires strict adherence to parliamentary procedure, typically Robert's Rules of Order. Before the meeting even begins, your coalition must arrive early. You need designated people assigned to specific roles. The sergeant-at-arms, to ensure order and monitor entry. The quorum counter, to meticulously track attendees and proxy votes. And the secretary, Chibo, minute taker, to record everything, especially any procedural challenges made by the rogue member. Do not rely on the existing HOA secretary, as they may be allied with the rogue director. Your team must take parallel, detailed minutes. The first order of business is establishing quorum. Your counter must verify that the required number of members, physical attendance plus valid proxies, are present. If quorum is not met, the meeting cannot proceed, and the entire removal effort is nullified, forcing you to restart the petition process. This is why the proxy collection is vital. Proxy management is often the deciding factor. A proxy is a signed document allowing one member to vote on behalf of another. The rogue board member will also be collecting proxies. Your team must have a rigorous system for collecting, verifying, and challenging proxies. Proxies must be dated, signed, and usually specify the exact vote they are authorizing. E.g., I authorize John Smith to vote for the removal of Director X. If a proxy is undated, unsigned, or vague, the board might try to disqualify it. If your bylaws allow for directional proxies, proxies that specify the vote, ensure yours are directional. If the rogue member attempts to use general proxies to vote against the removal, challenge the validity based on the specific language of the removal notice and your bylaws. Once quorum is established, the meeting should proceed to the single item on the agenda, the removal vote. The procedure should involve the following steps: presentation of the evidence, discussion, and the vote. Your designated spokesperson must be articulate, calm, and professional. This is not the time for an emotional rant. They should present the evidence you gathered, the financial figures, the procedural failures, concisely, demonstrating the clear pattern of breach of duty. This presentation should be rehearsed and timed perfectly, focusing only on the verifiable facts. The rogue member will be given time to defend themselves. They will likely deny everything, attack the motives of the petitioners, and attempt to sow confusion. Your team must remain silent and professional during their defense. The discussion period must be tightly controlled by the meeting chair, who may be the remaining board president or a designated impartial member if the bylaws allow. If the chair is allied with the rogue member, they will try to shut down discussion or allow only friendly comments. Your team must insist on fair, time-limited discussion, referencing Robert's Rules of Order if necessary. Finally, the actual vote. The vote must be conducted according to the bylaws, usually by secret ballot to protect members from retaliation. The ballot should be simple. Do you vote for the removal of director name? Yes, no, abstain. The counting process must be transparent. Appoint independent, trusted members, not part of the core coalition and not board members, to serve as tellers to count the votes. Both sides should observe the count. The count must include all votes cast, in person and via valid proxy. The tellers then announce the total number of eligible votes, the number of votes required for removal, the threshold you identified in Step 1, and the final tally. If the vote passes, the removal is effective immediately, and the chair must declare the seat vacant. The board must then follow the bylaws to fill the vacancy, usually by appointment or a subsequent special election. If the vote fails, you must immediately document the exact count, the procedural steps taken, and begin planning the next steps. Failure is not the end. It is feedback on where your strategy or mobilization fell short. The sixth critical phase addresses the fallout, whether you succeed or fail. Post-removal and legal recourse. The aftermath. The removal of a rogue board member rarely results in immediate peace. You must be prepared for the legal and administrative challenges that follow. If the removal vote succeeds, the immediate challenge is ensuring the rogue member complies and hands over all association property. This includes keys, financial records, passwords, and any physical documents. If they refuse, the remaining board, hopefully now controlled by the coalition, must immediately send a formal, legal demand letter requiring the turnover of property within 24 to 48 hours. Failure to comply is theft of association property and can lead to police involvement or a court order compelling turnover. The remaining board must also immediately change all financial access, bank accounts, and management company contacts to prevent the former director from causing further damage. However, the rogue member might initiate their own legal challenge. They might file a lawsuit claiming the removal was procedurally flawed, that the proxies were invalid, or that the petitioners defamed them. This is where your meticulous documentation from Step 2 and your perfect adherence to procedure from Step 4 and 5 become your defense. The HOA's insurance, directors and officers, or D&O, liability insurance, should cover the defense costs of the association, provided the board acted in good faith. If the rogue member sues the individual petitioners for defamation, the petitioners must be prepared to show that every statement made during the campaign was based on documented fact and made without malice. This is why you focused on financial records and procedural violations, not personal attacks. What if the removal vote fails, either due to insufficient votes or a successful procedural challenge by the rogue member? This is devastating, but it is not the end. If the vote failed on the numbers, it means your mobilization was insufficient. You must analyze where the votes were lost. Was it apathy, fear, or a misunderstanding of the issues? You must regroup, refine your message, and restart the petition process, aiming for a higher turnout next time. If the failure was procedural, e.g. the quorum was not met, or the notice was deemed invalid, you must correct that specific procedural flaw and reissue the petition and meeting notice immediately. In extreme cases, where the rogue member and the remaining board are so entrenched that they actively prevent the members from exercising their legal rights, e.g., refusing to schedule the meeting, actively destroying records, or outright stealing funds, the members may have to seek judicial intervention. This is known as a mandamus action, or annal, declaratory judgment. A mandamus action asks the court to compel the board to perform a legally required duty, like scheduling the meeting. A declaratory judgment asks the court to rule on the validity of a past action or interpretation of the bylaws. This is expensive and time-consuming, requiring the hiring of an attorney specializing in HOA law. But sometimes it is the only way to break the deadlock and restore democratic governance. Before taking this step, ensure you have exhausted every internal remedy and that your evidence of malfeasance is undeniable. The final, and perhaps most important, phase is institutional reform, preventing future rogue members. If you succeed in removing the director but fail to address the systemic weaknesses that allowed them to gain power, history will repeat itself. This phase is about changing the rules to protect the community going forward. The first area of reform is term limits and staggered terms. If your bylaws allow directors to serve indefinitely, you create the opportunity for entrenchment. Propose an amendment to the bylaws establishing reasonable term limits, e.g., 2 consecutive 3-year terms. Staggered terms ensure that not all board seats are up for election at the same time, preventing a single hostile takeover of the entire board in one election cycle. The second reform area is transparency and financial oversight. The rogue member thrived in the shadows. You need to amend the bylaws to mandate increased financial transparency. This means requiring the board to publish detailed, monthly financial reports, including check registers and budget-to-actual comparisons, to the membership. Require mandatory annual independent audits by a CPA, not just a review, for any association over a certain size. Propose a bylaw amendment that requires competitive bidding for any contract exceeding a low threshold, e.g., $5,000, and mandates board approval for any non-budgeted expenditure over a small amount. This eliminates the ability for one person to secretly benefit or spend large sums without oversight. Third, focus on director qualifications and training. If your bylaws are silent on qualifications, anyone can run, regardless of their background or intentions. Propose amendments that require directors to be current on their dues, not have any outstanding violations, and potentially mandate that newly elected directors attend a basic training course on fiduciary duty and state HOA law within 90 days of taking office. This raises the bar and ensures that future directors understand the legal weight of their responsibility. Fourth, strengthen the member access to records and meetings. Rogue directors often try to restrict access to documents. Amend the bylaws to specifically cite your state's law regarding member rights to inspect records, making it explicit that the board cannot arbitrarily deny access to financial or operational documents. Clarify the rules regarding member attendance at executive sessions, ensuring that only legally defined issues, personnel, litigation, collections, are discussed behind closed doors. Implementing these reforms requires another mobilization effort, similar to the removal campaign, as amending the governing documents often requires a supermajority vote of the entire membership. But this effort is an investment in the long-term health and stability of your community. The journey to remove a rogue HOA board member is a marathon, not a sprint. It is a grueling, detailed, and often frustrating exercise in community law and political mobilization. But understand this: when you feel powerless, remember that the power has always resided with the membership. The rogue member only holds power because the majority has been silent or uninformed. Your success depends entirely on your mastery of the governing documents, your meticulous evidence gathering, your ability to organize and motivate your neighbors, and your absolute adherence to procedural perfection. Do not let emotion dictate your actions. Let the facts and the bylaws be your guide. By following this comprehensive, step-by-step process, you transition from being a victim of an abusive system to becoming the force that restores accountability, transparency, and democratic rule to your community. This is not just about removing one person, it's about reclaiming your home and your investment. Now, go read those bylaws, start your binder, and prepare to win. The future of your community depends on your action today.